So I'm a father of one. I gotta find a babysitter. I found Care.com and I was blown away. Through the platform, I was able to find local and experienced candidates along with their reviews and rates, which were way more affordable than I anticipated. Care.com really put me at ease knowing that they were all required to go through a background check. If you're like me and you need to find someone reliable for your childcare necessities, check out Care.com. Find the ideal sitters for your childcare needs.
JamesAllen.com is the online destination to easily design a customized engagement ring and save up to 50% compared to traditional stores. You pick a diamond, whether it's lab-created or earth-created, James Allen has over 200,000 conflict-free stones. Then you pick your ring setting and metal. And if you need some help, they have real-time diamond consultations available, where an expert can walk you through it all. Get 25% off your order at JamesAllen.com code podcast. That's JamesAllen.com code podcast.
Welcome to the Powercat Podcast, GoPowercat.com's Kansas State Athletics Show. Now, here's your host, GoPowercat publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to this edition of the Powercat Postgame Podcast. Kansas State handles Troy 42-13 at Bill Snyder Family Stadium on Saturday morning. A beautiful day at the Bill. It might have gotten a little hot down on the field, but it was lovely at kickoff. Temperatures rose, and K-State had a little test on its hands. We knew Troy would be good, and they delivered, but so did K-State. Tim Fitzgerald and Cole Carmody, your team for all the postgame podcasts. And, of course, Brian Hanley now is part of the cast for The Insiders. We go live every Monday afternoon at 1:30. You can find it on our YouTube channel, Go Powercat. Make sure you check that out. And if you can't watch it live, that's cool. The replay will be up on YouTube at Go Powercat. It's also a podcast that you can pick up on our podcast network, as this is. And make sure you're subscribing to our podcast network, whatever you like. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast so that you get an alert every time it pops up. You don't miss an episode. 42-13, as I mentioned, a score that does not reflect the effort in which K-State needed to offer to win this game. Troy is good. Cole Carmody, give me your initial thoughts.
It's hard because you look at the score and you say 42-13, not much could have gone wrong. And K-State probably dominated the whole game. If you didn't watch the game, if you are just someone who's a gambler and you just bet on K-State and you saw the score, you probably would think, oh, well, they did exactly what they needed to do, and you'll probably do the same with K-State at Missouri next week. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that, which, by the way, that line is just absolutely incredible.
It's crazy.
But I thought K-State, honestly, today, they had to work for everything. Nothing came easy. And in a day in which you won by almost 30 points, a day in which nothing came easy, that is usually a pretty good sign for K-State. Yeah. I think that there was a lot of things they can learn from this game that they did right, but there's also a lot of things that they didn't do right, which they can even take more away from. So overall, I don't think you could ask for a better day. We didn't hear about any injuries, which is always a good thing. Chris Kleiman didn't say anything about any injuries after the game. After the first game, he didn't say anything about Jake Clifton. I don't think we knew about Jake Clifton at the time, but I just thought it was an overall extremely positive Saturday morning and afternoon.
Okay. With all that said, let's go over some of the issues K-State faced. Will Howard wasn't his normal sharp self. He was 21 of 32, 3 TDs, and an interception in there, was sacked once. That was not his fault again. Didn't have much time to react on that one. I thought Will was trying to force the ball. And I asked him in the postgame, he said, absolutely. He was trying to hit the home run when the home run wasn't there, and that's what led to the interception. But it got to be a trend where he was locking in on receivers, often in double coverage deep, and it made it really difficult on him. And then he hit a huge one in the second half to Jaden Jackson, the same thing. What an incredible catch by Jackson, who's emerged as a promising receiver in this rotation with Keegan Johnson out, who played in the second half. But give me your thoughts, as Will Howard was pretty critical of himself in the postgame, and I think it was deserved.
Yeah, I don't think he had the best game. I don't think he played bad. I mean, you look at the stats, and 21 of 32, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns with 1 interception. I think every single K-State fan will take that every single day. There was a time not too long ago where a K-State quarterback throwing for 250 yards. It didn't matter what happened. If that happened, that was a good day. He did make some really impressive throws.
Yeah.
Like, there is things about Will Howard that have improved, but I think the biggest improvement has come in his ability to just drop the ball down in the bucket. And you talked about that catch from Jaden Jackson, but let's not skip over the fact that was an incredible throw. He put that ball in the only place where Jaden Jackson could catch it, and it was honestly, it was incredible. And yeah, the interception was not good, but he was hard on himself, and I think that's what makes him the kind of quarterback that he is. He's understanding. He knows how to read defenses, and when something doesn't go right, he learns from it. So, yeah, I really thought he played the ball, and he played through the ball really well, and I thought he ran the ball exceptionally well. That's something that we haven't seen him do. He didn't, correct me if I'm wrong, Fitz, but I don't remember him doing that last year. And maybe it's because of Adrian and him being hurt, and then you had Rubley as the backup at that time, and maybe they feel like, if something does happen to Will, you've got a guy in Avery who can come in, but he ran the ball well too. So, yeah, I mean, again, 8 carries for 41 yards. That does include sack yardage, so I would have to imagine that the actual yardage was a little bit higher than that.
Yep, it was. Nice day for running the ball for Will. Let's stick with the passing game, though. Jaden Jackson, 4 targets, 4 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown. Again, he scored the first touchdown of this game, too. So if you had Jaden Jackson scoring the first touchdown of the first 2 games, I hope you won a lot of money. Because I don't know where you got that book to even have that on the line. Yeah. Nobody saw that coming. Phillip Brooks, though, was the main guy who was targeted 9 times in this game. He caught the ball 7 times. Had a really nice touchdown off of a catch because Jaden Jackson threw a beautiful downfield block right before halftime, allowing Phil Brooks to turn the corner and get into the end zone. It was a really nice play overall for K-State. Phillip also had a rushing touchdown, so a double touchdown day. They threw the ball 8 times in R.J. Garcia's direction. They did a good job bottling him up. Only 3 catches for R.J. Keegan Johnson, as I mentioned, played in the second half. 4 targets, 3 catches, 25 yards. Overall, Treshaun Ward also had a receiving touchdown in the game. Overall, I like where the receivers are at, and it's because of Jaden Jackson. We knew what the top 3 guys were. They've been talking about Keegan, even though he didn't play the first 6 quarters of this season. We knew he was good. We knew Phillip Brooks probably would take a step forward. He has. And, of course, R.J. Garcia has been really reliable. But having Jaden Jackson emerge as a 4th receiver, and we saw him late in the game, he'd been playing in replacement of Keegan Johnson. And we saw him on the field with Keegan Johnson late in the game. I think that said a lot of their new grown faith in this guy. He's making plays.
K-State's receivers now are better than the receivers have been in years. I mean, I'm not even just going to say they're better than last year because they are better than last year, but I cannot remember a receiving core that was this deep because between Phillip Brooks, between R.J. Garcia, Jaden Jackson, and now Keegan Johnson, those are 4 legitimate threats, downfield threats that can make a big play at any time. Last year, you didn't have that, right? As much as people love Cade Warner, he was not a downfield threat. Did he have a few occasions where he would catch a big, he'd make a big play? Yes, but that was because he beat somebody one-on-one. He was never able to get past the corner, get past the safety, be open down the field, make a big play. All 4 of those guys can do that now. You have home run hitters. And while we know Will likes to throw those home runs, it just makes this receiving core that much better. And Fitz, you didn't even say Ben Sinnott. He had 1 catch for 5 yards. So the fact that they were able to do all of this on offense without Ben Sinnott just goes to show you how many options they have. And it's exciting for this team because the offense is only beginning to take these steps towards being great.
After the game, Will Howard said you could hear the defense shouting out 34, 34. So they were making sure the tight end didn't punish them. They gave up 42 points, but this Troy defense was legit. They kept K-State overall. Let me see here. K-State had, where is it? Why can't I find these numbers? 397 yards of total offense. That doesn't add up to 42 points to me.
No.
I mean, I thought that was a little bit deceiving. K-State had 250 yards of passing because Troy's run defense was fantastic. And gave the line plenty of lessons to learn. The line is out of whack. There's no doubt about it. Without Christian Duffy, we got to just say it. Carver Willis had another bad day. He just isn't ready to hold up against it. And Troy had some outstanding pass rushers, and he gave, for the second straight week, a guy coming off the edge with a free shot at his quarterback. Man, that's just going to get you on the bench. They're going to have to stick with Beebe at the right tackle spot until Duffy's back.
Which might be next week. Chris Kleiman said in his post-game press conference that he went back to practice on Wednesday and Thursday. So if it really is a major need, maybe he comes back.
Yeah, or maybe he just backs it up. But what happens there is now you've got Taylor Portier, who Kleiman said is rusty. Even though he was an outstanding lineman before his 2 knee injuries, he's just rusty, hasn't really played in 2 years. And you move Panzer over to the left guard spot where Beebe's supposed to be. So you got some disorganization there. You got a lot of experience, but not in these spots, and it showed up. K-State averaged only 3.9 yards a rush. Granted, there's some, as you mentioned, sack yardage that comes out of that. Trayshawn Ward, 16 carries, 58 total. DJ Giddens, 12 carries, 52 total. Will Howard, 8 carries, 33. I was impressed by the Troy defense, and Will Howard went as far to say it's one of the best defenses, if not the best he's faced, when I'm like, dude, he played Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. They're probably not that good, but they were good. They were athletic and flew to the ball.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the offensive line situation is interesting because there is a lot of things that they can do with the offensive line because you have a guy in Cooper Beebe who is so versatile. But you're right. Like, I just feel like he has to play right tackle right now.
He has to.
I mean, it's nothing against Carver Willis, but
it is. It is. I know we don't want to say bad things about kids, but you cannot get your quarterback nailed 2 weeks in a row.
I feel like Connor Riley and Chris Kleiman realize that now. And if they were maybe had their blinders on and said, all right, it was a tough first game, but we still believe in this kid. And I do still think they believe him. Yeah, he wouldn't start if they didn't
obviously did believe in him.
But after the game, it was pretty telling. And, I tried to put it as elegantly as possible in the post-game press conference and asked Coach Kleiman, hey, did you guys feel like you kind of found your 5 in the second half? And without saying, yes, we have our 5 starters now, it was pretty obvious that I think the plan going forward is maybe you give Carver Willis a drive against Missouri, and if something happens, you put in Beebe. But if I'm Chris Kleiman, I'm going 60-40 with reps. Cooper, you're playing right tackle in practice, and 60% of the time, 40% of the time you're playing guard because you need to be prepared to get in there at right tackle.
K-State won't be the same until they get Duffy back.
No.
They just won't. It's kind of amazing. But the guy had started so many games. What is he?
35.
35?
Yeah. Incredible.
And then that came to an end last week. One more offensive thought. I was a little surprised we didn't see either backup quarterback in one of those late drives.
Yeah, it was a little surprising. I thought they might try and get Jake in there just after how they handled the whole situation with Avery. Especially that last drive. Now, granted, they took over after a 4th down stop and K-State went and scored a touchdown. And maybe it was as much as they wanted to make sure that Will still had that confidence. They want to see him play a full game because there is something to that. I truly believe there's something to starting a game and finishing a game. And against a team like Troy, they had their starters in, right? So if K-State would have put their 2s in, they would be going 2s against 1s. If it's 2s against 2s, it's a little bit different. That's kind of what happened with SEMO. Avery was in there against some of the backups. But yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have seen Jake ahead of Avery in this game.
I would have too. And special teams showed some signs of life here. We had a kind of a bad punt by Jack Bloomer to start the game in which he kicked it about 80 yards in the air, but unfortunately he was kicking to a short field and gave him a touchback. But Phillip Brooks popped up. He was on the kickoff return team. The main guy back, 45 yards in kickoff yardage, 37 in punt return yardage with his 94 through the air, his 2 yards rush. He had 178 all-purpose yards. Have a day, Phil Brooks. They didn't get the big return, but he was damn close on one of them.
Yeah, I thought special teams was really good today, Fitz. Phillip Brooks, it amazes me because he is not the fastest guy in the world, but he just finds a way. And I think it talks about K-State's punt return team and how special that unit has been. A guy who played today who didn't play in the first game was Ty Bowman. If you go back at that really long punt return, he was the guy who was out there lead blocking for Phillip Brooks. That ended up being a really big play. You mentioned Jack Bloomer, though. I was actually really impressed with him today. There was some punts he had. I want to say besides, off the top of my head, besides that punt that went in for the end zone for a touchback, I believe every other punt was inside the 20 and maybe even the 15, which was a big deal because K-State was consistently getting 3 and outs in the second half and forcing Troy to punt. That's why when you look at the total yardage, they only have less than 400 total yards, but 42 points. So...
Right.
That's where that comes from. It's from special teams. So shout out to Jack Bloomer, honestly. I think he was one of the stars of the game.
He did have 3 out of his 5 inside the 20, averaged 39.2. Would have been over 40 if he hadn't kicked that one ball to the Mars, try to kick it out of bounds or something. But overall, special teams took a step forward. Let's move over to defense. I don't know what we're going to talk about in the second half of this podcast, but let's talk about...
It's like the press conference. It's going quick.
Yeah, exactly. It was a weird press conference. Troy came in with a great running game. That's what they're known for. This is a old school, play tough defense, run the ball at you, throw it enough to mess with you. They got great receivers. Got a quarterback who we talked about in the pregame show and on my Keys to Game. He's a manager. He's not a big play guy. He had some nice throws. But Carmody Vidal, I think that's how you pronounce his first name, came in. They were raving about him. He'd had, gone over 200 yards a number of games. And they held him to 83 net, but 46 of it came on one run out of 17 carries.
Yeah.
He's good, but the K-State defense outside that one play just completely took him out.
So essentially it was 16 for 45. I mean, what he was able to do in the previous game, 285 yards, was not going to ever happen against K-State just because of how dominant K-State's front seven can be at times. But it was – first of all, let's just say the play calling on Troy's part when the game was close, I was a little disappointed. I'd be a little disappointed if I was a Troy fan because 4th and 1 twice, they try and run the ball right up the middle, and they get stuffed both times with 9 linemen in the game and a quarterback and a running back. That is unacceptable if you're Troy. But, K-State was able to do things defensively today that it was impressive. And Uso, I know we talked about Uso a little bit in the last game. He is legit, Fitz. I had some question marks coming into the season. They talked about how all the improvements that he's made, but he's legit. They tried to single block him, and it was stupid. It didn't work. They had to double him, and even when they doubled him, he would still hold his own and free up a Daniel Green and an Austin Moore to make tackles. He is a difference maker.
Yeah, it's remarkable. He had 2 tackles in the game, and people look, they go, we didn't do much. He occupied so much personnel during the course of the game. Every time they tried to take him on single, he was somewhere in their face. So as we continue with the defense, 4 sacks in the game. Khalid Duke, by the way, folks.
Khalid.
I asked him after the game, is it Khalid or Khalid? And he said, technically it's Khalid. I don't think he's too worried about it, or he would have punched me in the face. But he had a great game. And, people have been saying, look, watch out for him. I know Felix Anudike-Uzomah was big time. He's all Big 12, defensive player of the year, all that stuff. But Khalid Duke is back at defensive end. He's going to tear people up. 2 impressive, important sacks in this game out of the 4. All 4 came from the defensive end spot.
He is going to finish the year as the Big 12 sack leader. If he stays healthy,
right,
he will finish the year as the sack leader. How many did Felix have last year? 12?
I can't remember.
It wasn't that much, and he was the sack. I think Felix. Sorry, Felix. Sorry, Khalid. I think Khalid will finish with double-digit sacks this year.
I would agree.
And he's already at 3. Now, is he going to get the Felix treatment and get double teams here soon? If there's anybody that would do it, it would be Mizzou. After a guy who just got a 2-sack performance. But I got to bring up Tobi Osunsami because he came running out there, and I think everybody was like, what, are they going to rush 2? What is he doing? And then he puts his hand in the ground, and he gets to the quarterback. He gets a sack at the very end of the game. I don't believe they actually counted it as a sack because it was – oh, they did?
Yep.
Okay. yeah, like, oh my goodness, like those are some scary guys coming off the edge. Nate Matlack had a sack today as well. So yeah, it was the pass rush. If you were worried about the pass rush, you shouldn't be anymore because these guys are legit.
I don't think Toby's a linebacker anymore.
No, that transition is going to be coming pretty quickly.
My gosh, he doesn't even try to get around the block. He shoves the tackle into the backfield, and on a third and long, if you're the quarterback, no.
Yeah.
I mean, you can take the guy trying to go around the corner and you step up in the pocket, but when he's just shoving your tackle back in your face, you're a little preoccupied by that. He was a force to be reckoned with. Leading tacklers in the game, Austin Moore and Will Lee with 6 apiece. Kind of shows how diverse the defensive performance was. But Will Lee with the interception. Dude, this guy's really good. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's really good. And we saw Marquise Siegel play his first time, and he comes crashing downhill on run situations. Is the defense better this year?
I'm glad you brought that up. And I am here for that because I'm leaning towards yes. Who would have thought that replacing 2 NFL cornerbacks in Echo Boydo and Julius Prince, that you could get better at that position? But I'm going to tell you right now, Jacob Parrish is better than Echo Boydo was last year. And that is no shade at Echo because Echo was a great Big 12 corner. He's on a practice squad in the NFL. But what I've seen from Jacob these first 2 games, it's honestly incredible because the plays he's making – Echo didn't make those last year, and it's nothing against Echo, but Jacob is that good. I mean, he is a legitimate number 1 corner.
Do you know how hard it is to run on a receiver's hip that tight without getting tangled up with them and not holding on to him? And there he was the whole game, basically right on the receiver's hip, and he's sticking his hand out and deflecting passes. I think we saw one play in which he could have been called for a hook, but he wasn't. He was just relentless all day. I can't believe how good he is. This kid was under-recruited, hardly recruited other than K-State, and here he is. Last year he's playing significant minutes against Alabama. Now he's starting as a true sophomore. Will Lee steps in. Marquise Siegel steps into the back end of the defense. Kobe Savage is playing like he did. He got called for a ridiculous holding call.
He just brushed it off. He's like,
this crew wasn't the best. But I love this defense. And that's not mentioned BJ Payne, who's just amazing.
Well, they're young, right? Like that. I think I walked away from today, and this is probably a topic for the second half, but I walked away today more excited about the future of this program than last week. And last week it was fun to watch all those true freshmen play. But this week it was fun to watch those guys that you had question marks about play because the speed that they saw today is going to be the speed they see in the Big 12. The thing that we were trying to tell people this week, Troy is a good football team. The difference between Power 5 football teams and Group of 5 football teams is the interior. I think we saw that today. Yeah. Troy's offensive line, not the greatest, right? They struggled to block Khalid Duke and Toby, but the skill position guys. I mean, we can go down the line. The skill position receiver, Chris Lewis from Troy. I mean, this is a kid who started at Kentucky, makes 2 amazing one-handed catches. That's going to be a type of receiver that K-State sees in the Big 12. And I thought the secondary, the young secondary specifically, looked outstanding. Yeah,
it really is. I mean, you go down this depth chart. Jacob Parrish, of course, as I mentioned, is a sophomore. The other corner, Will Lee, comes in as a transfer. Folks, he's a sophomore. Your safeties in, Kobe Savage is the lone senior. BJ Payne, sophomore. Marquise Siegel, junior. And they're playing 2 true freshmen back there. Colby McAllister, Savage's backup. And then you also have Jack Fabris running around. He was out there late again. So I don't think either one of those guys are going to redshirt. And that means they will have a full secondary plus others with plenty of playing experience. It's impressive. It really is.
It's very impressive. And it is remarkable because who would have thought that the second game of the year. Now, Fitz, they're going to be tested. Missouri's receiving core is legit.
Right.
That is one of the better receiving cores they will see all year. So they will be tested. We will know for sure going into week 4. We will know for sure if K-State's cornerbacks and their secondary is legitimate because they will face a good test at Mizzou. Say what you want to say. We're going to have plenty of time to talk about that. But the defense, I mean, the defense today was amazing. Like, the linebacking core, it's like the exact opposite, right? Like, you have your young secondary, then you have your veteran linebacking core in Daniel Green and Austin Moore. And I told you this when we were sitting up in the press box, but Austin Moore is going to go down as one of the most underappreciated linebackers to ever play at K-State because he is really damn good.
Let's come back to that topic right after this break here on the Powercat Postgame Podcast. Tim Fitzgerald, Cole Carmody, right here in the Cats and Dogs studio. And one of the dogs wants into the door. I had to let her out of the door. Now she wants into the door. So we'll be right back.
GoPowerCat.com's Powercat Podcast continues after this short break.
Getting the crew together isn't as easy as it used to be. We get it. Life comes at you fast. But trust us, your pals are desperate for a good hang. And when they hear you stock the party with drinks from Drizzly, they'll be banging down your door. Let Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery, take care of the supplies. All you need is an excuse. It doesn't even have to be a good one. It's your dog's birthday. The loquats are finally ripe. Whatever. With Drizzly, you can compare prices on a massive selection of beer, wine, and spirits and get them delivered straight to your door. Which means you can entice the crew to leave their houses without ever leaving yours. Whatever the occasion, download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com today. Must be 21 plus, not available in all locations.
Welcome back to the Powercat Podcast.
Welcome back to the Powercat Postgame Podcast. We don't have a sponsor. We're sponsored by K-State fans that love GoPowercat.com. We appreciate all the views we're getting on the YouTube channel, all the downloads with our podcasts. But make sure you're subscribing to Go Powercat so you can get the VIP stuff, including my 5 keys to victory and all the rest of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes with Go Powercat, kind of the inside scoop we share on the message board, recruiting by Ryan Wallace, all that good stuff. Make sure you're subscribing to Go Powercat. 42-13 Kansas State beats Troy in a game that was more competitive than the score, but the score is the score. K-State found a way to get it done, and they held Troy at bay every time they started to move the ball, with a few exceptions. But again, Austin Moore is just, as you were mentioning, good Lord, he's just so exact in everything he does. He's in the right place, doing the right thing. He shoots gaps when, it's a running play. Austin Moore just shoots through a gap that the running back probably should have seen and just nails guys. It's fun to watch him.
It is. And you combine him with Daniel Green, and you have two guys who have significant minutes. And the best part about, if you're a K-State fan, the best part about all of this is that you get to know that your team comes back with 2 true freshmen that are backing those guys up that will be there for the 3 years following. And let's not take this out of consideration that Austin Moore still has another year to come back if he wants to. Does he have an NFL future? I don't know.
I doubt it.
Would it
unless he
benefit
can
him
play
to come
safety,
back?
but I don't think he's fast enough for safety.
I mean, so that might be one of those guys that you look at, like a Daniel Green, who nobody expected to come back. Austin Moore could be one of those guys that decides to come back for another year, but just be happy that you have a Daniel Green and an Austin Moore in front of an Austin Romaine and Asa Newsom, both of who had a very big impact on the game. Austin Romaine finished with 3 tackles, had a significant impact. And once again, I mean, Asa Newsom, he just seems to make plays whenever he's in the game. He only had 1 tackle, but he's always around the ball. So, yeah, both of those guys. I mean, who would have thought that 2 true freshmen would be backing up these veterans?
They're playing 4 true freshmen on defense that apparently are not going to redshirt.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And it's not because they're desperate. It's because they're that good.
Throwing Kenigel Thomas. He was another guy who played special teams the whole entire game today, which makes me think he's going to be that cornerback that eventually starts to rotate in there.
They got to find him a new number.
Yeah, he cannot wear the throw-on jersey.
He's wearing it for all the special teams, and, I don't know. I look, as much as I love Grogan and Dickey, they need number 11.
Yeah.
They need to honor it, but when you got rosters this big now, you can't have retired numbers.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. We're talking about the linebackers, and you brought up number 11, and it's very well known that K-State is trying to go after another linebacker, and Michael Boganowski. He was there at the game today. He's number 11. So, if you're listening to this, the powers that be, not only do you need more jersey numbers, there might be someone who would wear it if they do decide to come to K-State.
Yeah, he would fit in nice with those other guys.
It makes you think about just how impressive this linebacker room is. I mean, regardless of what they do, Steve Standard deserves some props. I mean, we know it's been known that he might not be the recruiter that some of the other position coaches are, but he's just a guy that he just loves football. Right. He just wants to. He's like, I don't care. That's why Austin Moore is such a good football player. He's a former walk-on. If he's going to learn, if he's going to become a better football player, Steve Standard wants them in his room, and all of these guys are just eating up everything from Austin Moore and Daniel Green. And I think a lot of that has to do with the culture, not just by Steve Standard, but from the head coach, Chris Kleiman, as well.
Yeah, this program's in a good spot. But next Saturday morning in Columbia, Missouri, it's going to be rowdy. Rocks will be thrown. If I know their fans, it's going to be a heck of an environment. It's sold out. They're so happy to sell out a game in first time in 5 years. Congratulations, K-State fans. Look, they've sold out more games. I realize that. But all right, why haven't they sold out a game in 5 years? That's the bigger question.
You play in the SEC, you'd think you would be a little bit more excited to go to the game.
Apparently fans from the SEC aren't going to Columbia to watch games. But they'll be a good test. And you brought it up. Those receivers are big time. In K-State, I'm going to be really honest here. They got away early last year. Then it started to rain, and it was a huge advantage to K-State once it turned into a wet football because the turnover started for Missouri. If K-State can get away early, I feel like they'll be in good shape. But I have a feeling that game is going to go right down the wire. Early spread is -1 K-State on the road, which is kind of a compliment, but I thought it would be more than that.
Yeah.
And it may end up being there.
I think it'll probably be closer to 4 by the time we get closer to Saturday, but I just feel like Chris Kleiman and this staff, they take receipts. You know, Deion Sanders gets up there saying he keeps receipts. Well, Chris Kleiman and company, they keep receipts. And you don't call a timeout on Chris Kleiman's team with 30 seconds left in the game when you're down by 40 points to try and get in the end zone. Along with the recruiting battles they've done, there's going to be
some of the nonsense that's going on with that.
There's going to be some added motivation for not just the players, but the coaching staff as well.
It'll be interesting. The difference between Deion and Chris Kleiman is he keeps those receipts in his back pocket and doesn't talk about them. Chris Kleiman just takes care of business, and Deion tells the whole world. Let's talk about that real quick. I just want to bring that up. Colorado kicks the crap out of Nebraska. Nebraska's back. Well, not
back to being where they were.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Colorado looked better. I thought it would be a lower scoring game than what we thought.
Well, it was it was in the first half.
Right. I think it ended up a total at 50. The over under was 59, but apparently Colorado's pretty good, or Nebraska's just trash. So I don't know, but we saw Utah got a handful from Baylor. They ended up winning. Apparently Baylor threw a late pick to just idiotic. But this Pac-12 schools next year when they come in are going to bring some juice.
Yeah, it's the conference is in a really healthy place. I mean, and how cool is it to see TCU, Colorado go down to the wire, week 1 national television. Now, we didn't get a chance to watch the full game with Utah and Baylor. Was there a little bit of juice that was taken out because Baylor lost to Texas State? Yeah, I would agree with that. But it would have been really cool, and that game went right down to the wire. So those are 2 future Big 12 games that go right down to the wire on national television. And, is the story Colorado and Deion Sanders? Yes. But I think story number 2 is Colorado coming to the Big 12 with Deion Sanders and company, because you go back and you watch that TCU game, Gus Johnson is talking the whole time on the broadcast about how this is classic Big 12 football. I almost wonder if he didn't even know that they were still in the Pac-12. I think maybe a producer had to tell him, hey, they're still in the Pac-12 for this year. But, that's neither here nor there. It's just, how about Colorado getting big noon kickoff and college game day together
next week?
Yes, against Colorado State.
Big noon kickoff for the third time in a row, which is a little bit obnoxious. Joe Klatt, we know it's your alma mater, but there's other schools out there. I don't think he has anything to do with it. You know what? I love this conference, and I think this conference is in a really good position, even though some teams are upset. We were just joking about Tech and Oregon, which hasn't started as we're doing this. I didn't want to touch that game, and after what Baylor did with Utah, I don't want to touch that game. I have no idea what's going to happen in it, but that's Big 12 football. You just don't know what's going to go on, and we saw that across the conference. But K-State, in a game in which it could have become a game like Tulane, dug in the trenches, nobody can run the ball, and they made more plays. That didn't happen. K-State overcame that against a really good, sound Troy team that's probably going to win the Sun Belt for the second year in a row, and I love the Sun Belt. It's huge.
It is.
It's huge.
I told you I walked away very much more impressed than I did last weekend, and I think it's a combination of everything, because we were talking before we started recording, but Kansas State had a 5-star basketball recruit on campus, and that's not even close to being the headline of today. I mean, K-State opens up the brand new practice facility. They're coming off of a Big 12 championship. They welcome in a team that's won 12 games in a row, and they beat them by 30 points, and it's just another day at the office. Not just the football program, but the university, I feel like, is going on this upwards trajectory, and it deals with the conference. It deals with Brett Yormark. But it starts inside of the Veneer complex, because that coaching staff has finally found their groove. And combine that with what basketball is doing, and it's just exciting to think about the possibilities. It really is, and I think this season is going to end up being another special one. And I know people were worried about this game, before the season, but I tell you what, if that game is any indication, when K-State struggles and they still find a way to win by 30, it's going to be a fun year.
4 over 4. Let's talk about that before we close up shop. Very interesting. We all watched the Sugar Bowl, what happened, the kind of meltdown before halftime in which they missed a touchdown pass, which, was so regrettable because it did change the entire course of the game. They could have taken the lead before half. And then they give up the ball and give up a touchdown, which was horrendous. Then they onside kick and fails, and they give up a touchdown. It was just a nightmare. It wasn't even 4 minutes at the end of the first half and 4 minutes at the start of the second half. It was less than that. But Chris Kleiman and the coaching staff has made this an emphasis. We're going to close halves with power, and we're going to open up halves with power. And they did that, Cole. They won those 8 minutes of football, and it was crucial in this game. They never let Troy take control of the momentum, because after they got it to 14-10, we're thinking, okay, kick a field goal, get it to 17-10, and then at least you'll be 17-17 because Troy was getting the second half kickoff. Nope, went down, scored a touchdown, opened it back up, and Troy just was never in it.
That was the game.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the game was over at that point, essentially. And I think most people understood. And I bet if you go ask those Troy coaches, if they can go back and change one thing about that game, it is when it is 2nd and 18 after they sacked Will Howard, getting a stop as opposed to letting Will Howard, people forget this, break away for a really long run after he got that. That's a big play in the game. And then he follows that up with the throw to Phillip Brooks. That is a game. And then they come out, and K-State gets a 3-and-out when Troy comes out. Maybe it wasn't a 3-and-out, but they forced a punt on the first possession when Troy got it after halftime, because here we go again. Chris Kleiman wins the toss, elects to get the ball. He can joke about all he wants about how, I just do whatever we feel like that game. But Colin Klein's in his ear saying, I got something up my sleeve. And here we go. K-State scoring again on the opening possession. And then after the second half kickoff, they get a stop and force a punt. I mean, you can't ask for a better scenario.
Impressive. K-State 2-0 on the season. Get ready. It's time to step into the vicious, relentless, unforgiving SEC. Yeah, they play at Missouri next weekend. But I think K-State's in good shape going to Columbia. It's going to be a great game. Hopefully the weather is beautiful as it was today. Is it ever that beautiful in Columbia?
I think it's always dreary and stinky.
Yeah, stinky mostly. Yeah. That's it for the Powercat Postgame Podcast. For Cole Carmody, I am Fitz. We appreciate you listening. Make sure you check out my walk and talk, all of our postgame coverage at Go Powercat, and keep an eye on that YouTube channel, The Insiders, Monday at 1:30, live on YouTube. Cole comes back on Friday with another walkthrough. If you're not watching the Friday walkthrough, you're missing out. It is one of our most popular programs with him and Monty Spiller. I think it's mostly Cole and not Monty.
I would disagree.
Okay. Mostly Monty and not Cole. And also we have our pregame podcast also now on video every Thursday. We get the pregame podcast up on YouTube and our podcast channel so that you can have it nice and early and get a full absorption of what's coming up in that game. And we're going to have fun talking about K-State and Missouri. I'm Fitz, and we will talk to you real soon.
Thank you for listening to the Powercat Podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
Ready? Go. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is coming to Paramount Plus.
Hang on!
It's off-the-charts spectacular.
Go, go, go!
Tom Cruise has outdone himself.
The world's coming after you. Stay out of my way.
Prepare for one of the best action movies ever made.
This is getting exciting.
Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Streaming January 25th on Paramount Plus. Rated PG-13. Some material may be inappropriate for children under 13.